Hey, how's it going? Today I want to discuss conditioning for pure strength sports. So pure strength sport, powerlifting and weightlifting are probably the two best examples of pure strength sports. As in, the actual event itself is very finite. It only involves a display of strength. It's not a longer duration. So within strongman, ironically with the title, because of the loading events and the nature of competition, it's less of a pure strength sport. Probably the best example of a pure strength sport we have is powerlifting, where it's just literally static strength, the only thing in it. So when we're talking about conditioning for a sport, the first thing we need to do is understand the energy demands, energy system demands of competition itself. So if we look at the energy system demands of powerlifting and weightlifting in a competition, in powerlifting we have 9 lifts, in weightlifting we have 6 lifts, for which you're going to be given complete recovery. So within powerlifting, the recovery, the work-to-rest ratio is insane. The actual event itself, the actual lift itself is going to last about 5 seconds, whereas between lifts, you're looking at around 10 to 20 minutes of rest. So I can't even do the math on that, but it's going to be 50 to 100 to 1 work-to-rest ratio. So when it comes to the actual physiological demands or the energy system demands of the sport, it's about as pure anaerobic as you're going to get within sport. You're not going to find many other sports that are going to have such a bias towards the anaerobic system, specifically the ATP triphosphate. I can never pronounce it. ATP, and probably not even ATP creatine phosphate, ATP PCR. You're pretty much pure ATP, so you're basically as anaerobic as it gets. The only oxygen involvement within the actual event itself is going to be sitting down between your attempts, recovering. So it's basically as pure anaerobic a sport as you're going to find. So what's that mean for conditioning? Well, that basically means that for the event itself, we don't really need, to condition the glycolytic system, either the fast or the slow glycolytic system. We don't really need to condition the ATP creating phosphate system, ATP PCR, and we really don't need to worry about bringing up your VO2 max. You're pretty much completely anaerobic in nature. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't do any conditioning as a powerlifter or as a weightlifter. We'll discuss that in a second. So the next thing we need to understand, so once we've understood the energy system demands of the sport broadly, next thing you need to understand is when it comes to recovery from training, recovery from events, that's an aerobic demand. So after I do a workout, I'm going to recover when I'm not training, I'm going to recover when I'm sleeping, and this recovery, this activity is going to be driven by the aerobic system. So when I'm sitting at rest, I'm going to have what's called an elevated oxygen consumption. So if we use an arbitrary example, let's say my normal resting oxygen consumption when I'm at rest, haven't done any exercise, my baseline oxygen consumption, let's say, is 30 liters of oxygen a minute. Now after exercise, post-exercise, after a light session, maybe I now have a 32 liters of oxygen consumption, or maybe after a really heavy session, my resting oxygen consumption is now 42 liters of oxygen per hour or per minute resting. So basically, the severity of the exercise stress or the severity of the session is going to increase the resting demands, the resting oxygen demands, because your body's repairing, it's carrying out tissue repair, it's maybe building new tissue, hypertrophy. There's a bunch of metabolic demands placed on the body after a bout of exercise stress that we need to think about. And the more efficient your aerobic system is, the better developed your aerobic system is, the quicker that process is going to take place. So one of the things that we know within recovery, or one of the things that we know when it comes to recovery, is light to moderate aerobic activity actually speeds up recovery. The reason being is it engages the aerobic system, so it upregulates the aerobic system, which means during that 30 minutes, 40 minutes when you're doing your light to moderate aerobic activity, so it could be something like sitting on a bike with your heart rate elevated to say 50 to 60% of max. During that time, due to your elevated oxygen consumption, you recover slightly faster. So one of the things that we can say when it comes to recovery, or when it comes to recommendations for recovery, is active recovery is actually something that we can prescribe to help you recover faster from exercise-induced stress. So what's this actually mean for conditioning for a powerlifter or as a weightlifter? Well, you probably don't appreciate it right now, but your training actually is conditioning. What you're doing actually is conditioning. What you're doing is you're doing interval training. It's just interval training for weights. So when we sit and we say a session, we have squats, we have 6 sets of 6. That's six intervals of 6 reps. So we talk about it in a different nomenclature, we talk about it in a different way. So if we were doing a run, we might do 4 sets of 4 miles with 2 minutes recovery. Well, within lifting, we just have a different way of talking about it. So we effectively do condition. We condition for our sport in the gym. So we're already doing a conditioning training. There's already fitness demands placed on that, but it's the primarily muscular fitness demands, which is what the sport requires, is muscular fitness and aerobic fitness. And that's what we condition primarily directly in our training. So before we start talking about supplementary conditioning training, you need to understand that the training that you're doing is conditioning training. It's just conditioning training that's specific to lifting, specific to your sport. Now, what about raising base levels of fitness? You maybe feel like you're not recovering quickly between sets. You maybe feel like you're unfit. You maybe feel like after a heavy workout, it's taking you 4 or 5 days to recover, rather than 2 or 3 days to recover, which we're used to. There are instances where having a better general physical preparation, better GPP, better aerobic system is going to help you recover from your training. It's going to let you take on more volume load. It's going to let you take on more work, and as a result, you're probably going to get a better return out of your training in the long term. Well, the first thing you need to think about is, what have you done prior to this block? What are you doing in terms of like volume-based training, GPP? Have you done a GPP block, or have you done a high volume block? Have you done a work capacity focused block before you've entered into your latest training cycle, your latest training routine? So the primary fitness training, or the best kind of fitness trainer that most lifters can undertake, is a period of higher training. So a general physical preparation block or a work capacity block. So that could be like 4 to 8 weeks in length, and we're talking moderate to high volumes. We're talking moderate intensities. We can even look at manipulating the rest periods. So, for example, a squat workout could be 6 sets of 6 with 70% of RM, and we could be timing the rest at 3 minutes. So if you think about what that's going to do, if a normal session for you is 3 sets of 3 at about 80 to 90% with unlimited rest time, that's going to place pretty high elevated oxygen demand, or pretty highly elevated energetics demand compared to your normal training. So you're going to get you're going to get like an aerobic fitness benefit out of that. You're going to get a muscular fitness benefit out of that. You're going to get a glycolytic fitness benefit out of that. So if you perform a block of training like that for 4 to 6 weeks, where we're looking at the rest times, we're performing higher volumes, more sets, more reps, we're increasing the workload that's being put on you for a defined period of time of 48 minutes. Your base level of fitness is going to be increased. So we're getting 2 for 1 here. We're getting the aerobic system benefits that we want, but we're also getting muscular fitness benefits that we need. We're getting better muscular endurance, we're getting a better ability to handle training volume, but we're also getting higher VO2 max, we're going to recover faster. We're developing all the elements of fitness that are important for powerlifting. So that's the main, or even weightlifting, that's the main way that you should condition yourself as a powerlifter, as a weightlifter, is to utilize work capacity blocks, utilize general physical preparation blocks, or utilize hypertrophy blocks as they've become to be known in some circles, to increase your base level of fitness. Outside of that, let's say you're in the middle of a training cycle and you feel a bit gassed between training and you'd like to be a bit fitter. So what we need to do is we need to train the aerobic system. As a lifter, there is literally fucking zero benefit to training the fast glycolytic system, the slow glycolytic system, because we definitely don't utilize it within our actual efforts. So when you're doing a squat, the longest a squat set's going to last is going to be maybe 2 minutes, and that's if you're doing 20 rep squats, which you're not going to be doing in your training. Sets are going to last between 20 to 40 seconds, pretty much. A set of 10 is going to last about 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds. A set of 10 on deadlift, or a set of 10 on squat, if it's absolutely fucking disgusting, is going to last maybe a minute, which is not enough time to utilize the glycolytic system. The furthest, the fastest acting energy system you're going to utilize in your training as a lifter is going to be the ATP phosphate system, the creatine phosphate system. So when you get out to 30 seconds, 60 seconds, you're going to utilize the ATP creatine phosphate system. So that's maybe something we can look at. That's an energy system we can look at targeting within your training to get a benefit out of. But we already do. That's one of the two energy systems that we do condition. We condition the ATP system and the ATP creatine phosphate system through our training already. So it's not something that we need to condition anyway, because we're already doing that within our training. So we could maybe look at supplementation with creatine. That's going to help with that aspect. That's going to help with the higher rep sets. That's going to help with handling higher volumes. But when we're sitting around resting, getting ready for the next set, what's the energy system at work? It's the aerobic system. So when you want to produce a fitness outcome as a lifter, you need to be looking at developing your aerobic system. Now we don't want to be that. What this means is, well, we can of course we can develop the aerobic system with higher intensity interval training, but we're getting close to the energy systems that we want to utilize within our actual training, within our sports training. So doing things like taking a sledgehammer and hitting a tire for 30 seconds as hard as you can, it's too fucking close to the actual training that we do. So what you're doing is you're inducing a fatigue stimulus, which is reasonably close to what we actually do within our training, for no net benefit. You're not going to get a sport-specific outcome from that. You're just going to get fucking tired. So, well, if we look at something like, let's say you're me. Let's say you're 120 kilos. You're a 120 kilo powerlifter, and your lifting fitness is okay if you're doing like sets of 3 or to 5, and you have unlimited rest. But maybe you're feeling that you're struggling to recover between sets, or you're struggling to recover between sessions. Well, to develop, what we want to do is we want to develop your aerobic system and induce as little fatigue as possible, and certainly induce fatigue that isn't going to interfere with your training. So low-level aerobic work is going to do that. You don't need to be Mo Farah to be fitter for lifting. You just need to be a bit less of an unfit fat cunt. So things like hill walking, for me, fuck the hill sprinting, hill walking. Going out to a route, maybe that's like, with an end or Arthur's seat, for example. Walking up there 2 times a week, and taking rests every 2 to 3 minutes. So walk up for 3 minutes, sit on your ass for 2 minutes. Doing that, some kind of interval training like that is going to be more than sufficient for powerlifting. And you're going to get a lot of the benefit that you want. Rowing intervals, for example, rowing 300s, taking like a fairly moderate pace, row 300. You want to like work the rest ratio of about 1 to 1 or 2 to 1. 2 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest. Like an interval of like 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, 4 minutes on, 2 minutes off. Something like that at a moderate intensity. Say a heart rate of around 60 to 80% of your max. Something like that is going to develop fitness to a level that's going to help you recover from powerlifting. Because we're taking your terribly developed aerobic system and just developing it a little bit more. So when you're thinking about as a lifter, when you want to increase your fitness, the first thing is your specific fitness, your work capacity. Has that been developed? Or if that's underdeveloped, you really should consider a work capacity block. And if you're going to start any prolonged period of training, you should definitely start with a work capacity block. That's going to help fuckloads down the line. If we're in a scenario where we can't take the time out to do a work capacity based training block, then what we can add to our training needs to develop the aerobic system, and it needs to be as non-fatiguing as possible. And if we're taking on fatigue, it needs to be fatigue that isn't relevant to lifting. So it needs to be aerobic work. And we don't need to do a lot of it. 2 sessions a week is more than enough as a lifter. You don't want to get into the trap of doing 4 or 5 sessions, because it all adds up. You only have so much recovery in you, and you don't want to, as a lifter, you don't want to start wasting that recovery on aerobic work, because it's completely non-specific to the actual event itself. The only reason we want to be conditioned, or we want to be more conditioned, is to recover faster for training, or to be able to do more specific volume or more work that's actually going to lead to the outcome of being stronger. I'm going to call that video there. I hope that's been useful. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Marquise. You're watching Cast Iron Strength. If you have anything you want me to cover, either leave a comment below or slide up in the DMs. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.